Hello, Sherry. I know you've been there off and on today. Leslie just arrived finally, so we're going to get this thing set up here in a minute. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll go figure it out right now. Okay. Actually, I'm going to sign back out and come back in so that the recording is just the recording. Yeah, I think that's spaced out pretty well.
Look at that, Eric, but stuff like that.
So that was provided.
Oh, it was provided.
Yeah. You stand there for a second. I want to make sure I got this lined up well.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's all right.
Friends, shall we gather?
And wherever you'd like to go.
Okay.
And friends, please feel free to use the chairs.
So Leslie, you are going to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just. Friends, shall we gather? Or can you hear me okay where you are? These words from the writings of a Jewish sage by the name of Ben Sirach, known in Christian tradition as Ecclesiasticus. Do not fear death, we are destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived and with all who ever will be. Bewail the dead, do not hide your grief, do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory rest, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest better than constant sickness. Seek not to understand what is too difficult for you. Search not for what is hidden from you. Be not overoccupied with what is beyond you, for you have been shown more than you can understand. As a drop of water in the sea is a grain of sand on the shore, are a person's few days when measured in eternity. The good things in life last for limited days, but a good name will endure forever. Friends, all people have struggled with our mortality for as long as there have been human beings. Book of Psalms is often a reaction to the struggle with our mortality, and probably the best known of the Psalms is Psalm 23. So if you know the Psalm and you'd like to join with me, please do join in. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. These very famous words from the third chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes, made most famous by the birds singing. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Leslie, if you'd like to speak in Jay's memory.
Yes. Some of you might have read my long post already. But I kind of wrote it because I promised to talk to Mark the other day and wanted to give a eulogy. So I kind of was thinking of that as I wrote this for Facebook, which I didn't get up until yesterday and wouldn't let myself leave until I did so. So I'm just going to read what I posted. And I put a trigger warning on it. So yesterday, was the 62nd anniversary of the day my parents were married in 1962. So I guess that would have been a goal to something if they were together. I will drive approximately 200 miles south from Omaha to my hometown of Kansas City. Tomorrow, I will eulogize and bury my sister Justine, who many of you used to know and would remember as my brother Jason Patra. I helped her choose the name Justine because many years ago, naming her after Justine Bateman from Family Ties, the sister of Jason Bateman from Valerie and Hogan family, we sometimes also use the name Jenny Patch. 2 weeks ago, November 11th, I received a phone call from Justine's friend Brett, who lives in Lawrence, Kansas, where Justine had been living in an apartment in an old house for at least the past year. I last heard from Justine just before I moved into my current apartment in March 2023. She was in and out of Omaha several times during January of last year, at the time that I was in the process of trying to find myself a place to move on my own that I could afford. I'd been living with a roommate for a number of years. Brett told me that he had been chatting with Justine via text on Thursday, November 7th, and then Justine stopped responding to his messages. He told Brett that she'd been given an eviction warning from her landlord, which the landlord has told me was due to her hoarding and needing to clean the apartment, not because the rent wasn't paid. I was supposed to appear in court on Friday the 8th. It was also 2 days after the election, and Justine had been living as a trans woman for many years. Brett and I are sure that she was scared to live through whatever will occur in our country after January 20th. The state of Kansas did pass a law last year regarding transgender people not being able to use the public restroom that they identify with and present as. So I had been expecting such a call for some time, quite some time. Now telling me that she'd been the victim of a homicide for going into a women's bathroom, which she had always done. I was in the middle of subbing and with students, so let Brett know that it would be over an hour before I could return his call when I would be on my lunch break. When I called him back, he told me that he was at Justine's apartment, that the door was unlocked and that he had been able to walk inside and that Justine had taken her own life. She was 55. My friends in Kansas City's Jewish community received notification from Lewis Memorial Chapter of Graveside service and burial of Justine Jason at Roseville Cemetery, 68th and Truce, where mom was buried. She's over that direction. Via an email sent to the entire community, which says obituary to follow. I promise I will update with something, and survivors and all that. The cemetery is owned by the Temple Congregation of B'nai Yehuda, where our family were members and where mom worked in the administrative office for 30 years until her death in 2006. I apologize for the long delay and short notice, but this isn't an easy post for me to write. I haven't yet responded to those of you who have texted me via Facebook Messenger over the past few days, but your condolences are much appreciated. While Justine attended Shabbat and holiday services at B'nai Yehuda New Reform, and the late Rabbi Cantor Paul Silbersher, Kolami, who was at B'nai Yehuda for many years and shared Jewish celebrations with her non-Jewish friends over the years. Neither she nor I were members of Temple, and I knew nothing of her last wishes, and neither of us has the money right now to pay for a funeral and burial. I want to acknowledge the Jewish Family Service of Kansas City, which I just drove by, for agreeing to cover the expenses so that I can bury Justine in the same cemetery where mom is. I also want to thank the Temple for granting their permission for her to be buried at Rose Hill, which is where I want her to be. Rabbi Mark Levin, Rabbi Emeritus of Congregation of Beth Torah, who was Assistant Rabbi at B'nai Yehuda throughout most of our childhood and teen years to beyond, will officiate. So I'm glad that someone who's so special to me will be the officiant. You said a lot of things. You and Paul officiated my first wedding in 1986. That was after confirmation in 1982. Taught my confirmation.
Right.
And my bat mitzvah. I think you were there by the time of my bat mitzvah in 79.
Mhm.
You've been through a lot with me.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you're the one here. And I did see a message. Michael Zedek left a nice comment on this post, by the way. The loss of our mom was extremely difficult for Justine because she was the one who was living with mom and witnessed in person mom's sudden symptoms that culminated in a diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer only 6 weeks before her death in 2006. It took her years to be ready to sell the house, and by then the clearing out process was too overwhelming for both of us, but especially for Justine because a lot of what was in the house was hers. We finally closed the sale in 2019, which then cemented the sense of homelessness and hopelessness for Justine, as she no longer had a place that she owned to live in. She had experienced mental health struggles over her adult life and hadn't worked a conventional job in decades, which I attributed to not having a photo ID and social security card that matched each other, as well as how she presented herself as a woman. That's why I drove through KC and picked her up and dropped her off when Dad died in Cincinnati in February of 22. I was much better off financially at that time and could have bought us both plane tickets there, but I realized that she couldn't board a plane because of her lack of matching IDs. Justine was born on March 29th, 1969. Like myself, her entire K through 12 education was in Center School District number 58, South Kansas City, Missouri, having attended Red Ridge Elementary School, Center South Junior High, and Center Senior High School. We were both diagnosed as gifted before gifted education was a thing. When she was going into 9th grade, at my mom's insistence, our high school allowed her to skip some classes. I think at least ninth grade social studies and language arts, and to take higher level courses with students a grade level or more ahead. To my knowledge, Justine was never diagnosed with ADHD, but I used to describe her to people as being like the stereotypical absent-minded professor. So I'm pretty certain that she had it. Mom regularly would have to go to school to check the lost and found for a missing hat or gloves or other items. Her backpack would be full of crumpled papers, her glasses, which I just noticed this here. This is so great with the glasses. Her glasses would sometimes get too loose or broken. As an adult, she used to wear 2 or even 3 pairs of prescription glasses or reader glasses in order to be able to see or read clearly. In recent years, she had lost much of her eyesight and could no longer drive safely. A year or so ago, she qualified for disability benefits due to her low vision. She was musically inclined, talented, and could play multiple instruments. During elementary school, she took piano and organ lessons and began attending Camelot Academy, a summer program day camp for fine arts students. She also played clarinet in the school band, read prolifically, wrote short stories, collected comic books, played Dungeons and Dragons, and bought an Apple IIe computer with her bar mitzvah money in 1982. Our family had season tickets to Starlight Theater, which our mom and later Justine held on to for decades. We grew up attending touring Broadway musicals and popular concerts there, dating back to when there would be, I think, 10 consecutive weeks of touring shows. We would also sometimes go to the symphony. Our mom had a large vinyl record collection, which I hope to find somewhere in all of her belongings. And between that and the radio stations that we would listen to in the car, we were exposed to a wide variety of musical genres. She inspired Justine's lifelong addition to NPR, in particular KCUR and KANU. Justine was a big fan of Barry Manilow. Just now I heard It's a Miracle. I've heard a number of songs in the last 24 hours or so because I'm serious, and I've been taking pictures of them and sharing them with all of you. So I found that kind of spookily ironic. Then she went through a Beatles phase when the Sgt. Pepper movie starring the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton came out in the late 70s. And I just saw like ELO and Queen were on too, which I think were other bands that she had liked then. During high school, Justine was selected to become the band's bassoon player, so she took lessons to learn the instrument. She then had her best friend, Andy, remember this? Teach her how to play saxophone so she could be in the marching band with him and other good friends. She competed in debate and in extemporaneous speaking and qualified for the National Forensics League National Tournament more than 1 year. She maintained contact with her high school debate partner, Eric, over the years. I was really glad both of you are here. She also participated in drama, performing in school musicals, and wrote and edited for the Searchlight newspaper, Yellow Jacket Yearbook, and created a school-sponsored literary magazine that I was blanking on the name of. So I can fix that if either one of you remember what it was. You can't either, I know.
I might have a copy stored away somewhere. I will look.
Okay, there might be. I was going to update this, but if we figure it out. But I remember that was maybe junior year. Yeah, and it was like went to Mrs. Foreman maybe and wanted to. Oh, that's true, and I have some too. So maybe. Yeah. She had. She did all that. She took French in high school, which I had taken also. She was in the political science club and was the youth governor of Missouri during her junior year. She had her photo taken with then Governor John Ashcroft. She was also in the Key Club and was inducted into National Honor Society. During her senior year, she was dual enrolled at UMKC and came to center for the second half of the school day when the yearbook and debate classes met. At some point, she learned to play guitar. I said her friends, let me know if I'm forgetting anything. Justine graduated from Center in May 1987 and started college at Tulane University in January 1988, which coincided with Dad's relocation to Cincinnati following our parents' 1986 divorce. She lived in New Orleans until late 1993 and also attended Loyola during that time frame. She was always writing down ideas for her future memoir, as well as for stories, screenplays, and the like. She didn't want anyone to throw out any scrap of paper. Thank you so much for what you have done so far, Brett, with the apartment and checking on the storage out there. And Lawrence, she didn't want anyone to throw out any scrap of paper that she'd written something on. She could take computer components and connect them into a working system and had excellent typing speed, which used to help her get hired for temporary assignments. Over the past 30 years, she was what I refer to as a perpetual student. She spent time working in and attending universities in New York, San Francisco, England, France, and even went to New Zealand once. She had a passport and used it. She's also spent long periods in Lawrence, taking classes at KU, but to my knowledge, never graduating, and in Kansas City. My dad never understood why there was never a commencement to attend or any of that. I don't know either. She lived Westport, the Crossroads Art District, Graveside, which I just drove through, Waldo, downtown Lawrence, any place with a good blend of music, art, and interesting restaurants and bars. She used public transportation actively, and she loved to travel all over the U.S. on Amtrak. She was truly a citizen of the world. In addition to bookstores and libraries, she loved going to movies, especially at the fine arts theaters, was very intellectual, and was into the coffee house scene years before it became popular. She also liked indie bands. Some of you pointed that out to me. She was actively involved in the LGBTQ bar and social scene in the different places that she lived, and has a diverse group of friends who loved her and will miss her deeply. Hopefully she knew that. And then I said that I had written this as public and feel free to share. I pinned it. And I said I didn't know if anything had been finalized yet as to exactly when and where, but her friends and I have been discussing having a celebration of life gathering potentially in the next few days, or perhaps of December, if that's more convenient, and that I would keep everyone posted and hope to see people while I was here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, it's a little bit long, but
No, it's
it took me quite a while to write it, and I'm getting a lot of compliments on it from people, which is nice. So. Feel free to put up and got it.
A voice says, cry out, and I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, all its beauty like the flower of the field. Grass withers, the flower fades, when the wind of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades. The word of our God shall endure forever. Go ahead, lower. While they're doing this, let me say I'm so happy, so pleased that you all are here to share this. And I want to say, in Jewish tradition, go ahead. It's best that we be accompanied to the grave by those with whom we shared life, rather than by those who don't know us. So when the vault is closed, we'll have the opportunity, if you choose, to put some earth on the vault. There should be a couple of shovels there, so that we are in fact accompanied to the grave by those who were important in our lives. Hatzor tamim pa'alo kifol d'rachav mishpat el emunah ve'ein avel sadik v'yashar hu. Hatzor tamim b'chol po'al miyomar l'matzifal ashalit b'mata v'ma'al me'mit u'machaye morit she'ol v'ya'al. Hatzor tamim b'chol ma'aseh miyomar l'mata'aseh sadik ata Adonai la'mitu l'achayot asher b'yadcha pikadon kol rufot alil l'cha zichronenu l'vot yunai necha b'rachamim aleinu p'kufot. God is sure, our immovable rock. All God's work is upright. Who can say, what is it that you do? The eternal governs what is above and what is below, overseeing both the valleys of death and the heights of light. God is sure, our immovable rock. Who can say to God, what will you do? You are righteous in your dealings with both death and life, and every soul is in your trust. The words of Job, Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yishem Adonai Mavarach. God has given, God has taken away. Praise be God's name. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yasad etchem b'tzalmo, v'zan v'kilkel etchem b'tuvo, v'hemit etchem badin, v'atah b'tochechem chayei olam. Baruch atah Adonai dayan ha'emet. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in your image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, who causes all of us to die, who implants within us immortal life. Praise to you, O Lord, the righteous judge. The dust returns to the earth, the spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the spirit which we now lay within the earth. The spirit itself cannot die. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed Justine. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. That no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it. Still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand. The pain which loss inflicts is a measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, we commit all that is precious to us into your keeping. Now is our opportunity to participate in what's called Kavura, the burial. For those who choose to do that, please go ahead and their custom is to put some earth on just with the tip of the shovel 3 times. But whatever you choose is fine. And it's not an obligation, it's an opportunity. I'm assuming you don't know everything.
That was Joseph.
Those that
Todd for my grandma Mary's parents. I Joseph is Billy.
Oh.
Yeah, so I thought that it was wait. Yeah, because he was, grandpa was Joseph, so it was Joseph and Todd.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. Just wondered if this is when the longer beards it's like him spam smelled it a couple of things. So
Friend.
long went in there.
Friends, if you feel able, if you please stand for El B'lei Rachamim and the Kaddish prayer. El B'lei Rachamim shochein b'maromim. Amsei menucha nechona tachal kanpei hashchina. Im kedoshim u'torim kezohar harakia masirim. Et nishmat Yosef Tadros bat Shilov Shmuel shalcha l'olamah. Baal harachamim yassereh b'sefer kenafecha l'olamim. Yitzror b'sruach chayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachlata v'tanuach v'shalom v'mishkava v'nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Justine Kocherov, who has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God be her inheritance. May she rest in peace. Let us say, Amen. Friends, the Kaddish prayer, mourner's Kaddish, has been said by people for at least 2,000 years, in memory of our relatives who have passed. It is a doxology, a praise of God's name, and therefore the translation is not important. What is important is that we're giving homage to the person who has passed, who was meaningful in our lives. And also that we're saying that this is the way of all flesh, that in fact, we are all of us mortal. We thank God for the blessings of life. We also mourn when we have a loss of someone about whom we cared in life. Kaddish prayer for those who know Kaddish or choose to participate. Ready, listen. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah. V'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Agala u'vizman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam v'lonei olmaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yitramam v'yit nasei. Yit hadar v'yit alev v'yit halal Shemei d'kudisha b'richu. Le'elam in kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemai v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav. V'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Lech ki shalachach Adonai, go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai hiyeh imach, go your way, and may God be with you. Ve'alach lefanecha tzidkecha v'od Adonai yazvecha. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God precede you. Friends, it is our custom that friends say these words to family members. The only family member here is Leslie. So if you would turn towards Leslie and repeat after me. May God grant you consolation amidst all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Our service is complete. You may go in peace. Oh, that's nice. Oh, nice.